Okay, good evening, all of you. Welcome to Sourcing Adda's first Hangout episode. Well, I'm really excited because for the first time we have Maureen Sharib join us, and Maureen is a telephone sourcer. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today, sending us your questions. We did receive all of them. We shortlisted a few of them, and for the ones who couldn't send us your questions earlier, please follow the hashtag sourcing Adda Hangout, and you can share your questions with us. Our guest Maureen will answer them. So, without much further ado, I would like to ask Maureen to introduce herself. Maureen, tell us who you are. We have a mixed crowd. We have recruiters, we have sources all over India, and these are the people who have sent across the questions to you. So, the time's yours.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. I've watched as some of you have followed me on Twitter today, and I've read all of your profiles, the ones that have followed me. I see that Animal has just joined us.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, now I can see the PowerPoint. I'm a phone sourcer here in the United States. I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. I've been doing this since 1997. And
Great.
And when I say I'm a phone sourcer, what that means is I call into companies to find people that hold specific titles. I'm not an internet sourcer, although I do use the internet to sometimes begin my research. But the majority of my work is done on the telephone. If I were to break it up, I would say it's 90% on the telephone, 10% on the internet. And I use the internet to basically get my information about my companies, telephone numbers, that type of thing. Okay, Jasmine, I can see Animal here. I can't see my PowerPoint. Hi, Animal. You don't look worse for wear.
Good morning, Maureen. I am worse for wear. Maybe you want me to turn off my camera so I don't scare people.
No, you don't look worse for the wear.
All right, Maureen, do you see the PowerPoint now?
Yes, I prepared a PowerPoint for you all based on the 7 questions that I was given that some of you have sent in. And I understand that some of you will be tweeting questions into the, is it hashtag sourcing Adda, Jasmine?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I say something, Maureen? I won't interrupt you, but I just want everyone to know she is a fantastic phone sourcer. What she does really works for her. I know from personal experience. And I won't interrupt anymore, but I endorse her publicly. Okay, there you go.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Well, Maureen, before we start with the questions, I'd like to give you a brief that in India, telephone sourcing is not as much as practiced as in the US or in the Europe. So all our viewers or the people who have sent across the questions would like to know what exactly is telephone sourcing. Though we understand it is a phone sourcing, but we want you to define it a bit more. And is it ethical? Is it legal? These are the questions that come to our viewers' mind first. So can you just take over?
All right, let's go through the PowerPoint. I prepared this, again, based on your questions. If you'll go ahead and scroll through, Jasmine.
Sure. Okay.
I'm not seeing, okay. So what is phone sourcing? I've been writing about phone sourcing for a long time, and some of you may have been reading my writing. If you are curious about some of it, you can Google my name in quotes and the word phone sourcing. You can also Google my name in quotes and the word gatekeeper. A lot of articles will come up that I've written on the subject. But I've also written I have a program called Magic Method, and what it is a formatting on telephone sourcing. But from the first chapter, phone sourcing basically is calling into companies, specific companies that my customers want to see people out of, and finding out who specific titles are inside of those companies. Again, Jasmine, I'm not seeing the PowerPoint.
Do you see it now?
Okay. But it's not very well understood. And as you can see on your screens, I think you can see on your screens, it's simply put, it's the finding of people who hold specific titles within specific organizations so that you, as a recruiter, may contact them and offer them your specific opportunity. It's a very simple process. You call people on the telephone and you ask them questions. I'm not seeing the next. You might be wondering what type of questions. Well, I'll call and the gatekeeper will answer, and I may say to her, can you tell me who the director of external reporting is? I may ask her, well, can you tell me, does that person have an administrative assistant? What is her name? Some of these questions, you may be wondering, well, what do I need to know those things for? All these small questions are part of the larger puzzle, and this is how phone sourcers gather the information that they gather. Jasmine, again, I'm not seeing the PowerPoint.
Okay, do you see it now?
I do. Go back. So it's the piecing together of a puzzle. Go back again. And it may sound slow to you, but it really isn't. Think about all the time you spend on the internet. You can spend days, hours and hours, days and days on the internet, and going deeper and deeper into research. A telephone call is very fast. It's very direct. Sometimes you pick up a phone and you might learn who everybody is inside a specific organization. You might learn who everybody is inside of a specific company just by listening to a company directory. One phone call can result in someone telling you who everyone is in a specific department. And I'm not going to kid you and tell you that will happen for you, right out of the box. It takes a lot of practice. Can you go back? One phone call can result in 165 names. It has happened. It doesn't happen very often, but it has happened. It can happen. But again, it takes a lot of practice.
Okay. All right. Maureen, I'd just like to interrupt you. Before we address the question, is it legal and ethical? I believe you started phone sourcing since 1997, right?
Oh, yes, I did.
Yes. So can you tell me what has changed since then?
In phone sourcing?
Yes.
That's a good question. When I first started phone sourcing, there was not a lot of information about it. I didn't know what I was doing. Somebody called me up one day and said, would you like to do this? And I said, well, yeah, sure. That doesn't sound too hard. And then, I was given a job, and I called the job. I started to do it, and I got lucky, and I guess I got a good taste in my mouth, and I really enjoyed it. And I didn't know what I was getting into. I said, oh, this is great. And then I got deeper and deeper into it, and I learned how really difficult it can be, and it was really difficult. What has changed about it? Nothing and everything. Let me put it that way. I'm surprised by how I'm always discovering new things about my own techniques, and I'm always continuously writing new discoveries about technique, which surprises me to this day, all these years later.
Okay, that's great.
It's a hard question to answer. It's a hard question to answer.
Right. All right. So let's go on to the next question. Is it legal?
Is it legal? Absolutely, it's legal. In fact, precedent is being set today here in the United States that if you're not phone sourcing, you may be running afoul of securities and exchange laws. I want all of you to look up the Apple-Google poaching case that's ongoing. They're trying madly to settle it, and there's a judge here in California named Judge Koh, K-O-H, who won't let them settle for $326 million. It may end up costing them billions of dollars because they agreed amongst themselves not to poach each other's companies. And if you go into the literature and read it, you'll find that they said to the judge, to the investigators, well, we were contacting each other on LinkedIn and we were sending each other emails. We just weren't calling each other. And Judge Koh said, look, if you're not calling candidates, you're not recruiting.
All right, well, so that is the most important part of recruitment. All right, moving on, is it ethical?
We're all in charge of our own ethics. I'm not the person to tell you what's ethical for you, what's ethical for the next person sitting next to you. I know what's ethical for me. I'm not sidestepping this question, but I don't believe it's up to any of us to tell each other what's ethical.
Okay. Animal, what are your views on this? Do you think telephone sourcing is ethical?
You know what? I don't know if you should ask me because it's deceptive. The way Maureen does it, she never lies. But nobody really knows what her intentions are. So I'd say it's questionable. Ethically, it's questionable, and that's why Maureen says you have to decide for yourself. But it is like being an undercover agent. It's like being a private detective. You want to find something out, and you don't tell them who you are. You just snoop around. So it's really a personal decision, I'd say.
That's not true. You do tell them who you are. It's the first thing you tell them.
Yeah, Maureen. Sorry, I don't. You shouldn't have brought me on if you don't want me to argue with you. No, I'll just be brief.
I'm
You
going
go
to
on.
argue, but you know for a fact that I do tell them who I am.
Maureen does tell them right away. Hi, Maureen. My name's Maureen Sharib, but she didn't say hi. My name's Maureen Sharib. I'm a recruiter. My name's Maureen Sharib. I'm a telephone sourcer, and I want to find out the names of all the people in your accounting department so I can give them to a recruiter to call them up. She didn't tell them that, right? So they give her the information without knowing exactly why. That's the issue. And that's how recruiting works. That's how a lot of sales works too. Salespeople, sometimes to find out who the decision maker is, they have to use all kinds of techniques or tricks. You can say it's part of the game, but if you're really afraid of bending the rules, it's not for that kind of person, in my opinion. I don't think you should ask me this question again because I don't want to take up a lot of time arguing with Maureen about it.
All right. Okay, Maureen, please proceed. I see that we have your next slide.
Okay, so basically I'm glad Michael brought up what he did because that's what a lot of people think. So really, if what you're really asking with that question is, do I have to lie to phone source? No, you don't. Go ahead with the next thing. No, you don't. Asking a gatekeeper, go ahead, go back. Asking a gatekeeper very simply questions in very direct ways will garner very valuable information. It's not so much what you say as in how you say it. And the way I say it, and Michael knows this because he's heard me on calls, is I will call a company, I will say to a gatekeeper, well, let's back up. If she tells me her name, let's say she answers the phone and she says, this is ABC Company, Maria speaking, I will say to her, and this is exactly how I say it, and Michael will back me up on this. Hi, Maria. This is Maureen Sharib. Can you tell me? I would like to speak to your director of external reporting. Can you direct me to that person, or something along those lines? 6, 7 times out of 10, I'm put through, or she'll tell me who it is, or I'll get the information. 6 or 7 times out of 10. Those are pretty good odds. It doesn't always work, but those are pretty good odds. And there's no lying in that. It's just a very direct, simple approach.
All right. Now that we're talking about gatekeepers, this is the title of our topic. So I would just like to ask you that gatekeepers and getting over the fear of gatekeepers is something that all of us want to get over. So how do we play safe with the gatekeepers? So now that we're talking to somebody who holds expertise in this field, I would like to hear it from you, Maureen. How do you tackle gatekeepers, since they are the first barrier that anybody comes across when you lift up a phone and try to call a company?
how do I tackle gatekeepers?
Yes.
I think of the gatekeeper as a human being, somebody like myself. I just think of her as somebody that's doing a job, 9 to 5. She has a job to do. Her job is to answer the phone. I envision what her surroundings are like. So when I call her, I listen very carefully to her voice. I believe that you have, a couple seconds to make an impression on someone, but the first impression that's made is on me. So when she answers and she says to me, "Thanks for calling ABC Company, Maria speaking," it registers with me. Is she young? Is she old? Does she sound experienced? Does she sound like she knows what she's doing? Does she sound like she's having a good day? Does she sound ticked off? Does she sound like she'll be patient? All these things register with me, and then my approach is formatted from there. Does that answer the question?
Yes, that does answer our question. So basically what you're saying is we need to gauge the person at the other end, right?
Yes, you need to listen to the gatekeeper when she answers the phone and let her, what you hear register with you, and tailor your approach to what you hear. And don't be afraid of her. Don't be afraid of her. She has a job to do. If you approach her, when you call her and you think she's not going to give you the information, she probably won't. But if you call her thinking she's going to give me this information, think this way: I'm entitled to receive this information.
All right. Thank you for that. I hope all our viewers are listening to this. So I hope when you pick up a phone next time to have a call, you do not get scared of a gatekeeper. Well, moving on to the next question. Can you do telephone sourcing from corporate companies? Now, what we have observed in India is that, like I was having a discussion earlier with you, in corporates, we usually only stick to job portals, advertisements, referrals, and ATS, but we do not go apart from that because corporates usually would prefer having it done externally. So do you think it is possible to do telephone sourcing from corporate companies?
Are you talking about telephone sourcing within India, to other companies in India?
Well, why don't you just address in India? That I'm aware of is not usually done. So can you tell me how is it done in the US? Is it done over there in corporates?
I don't think a lot of companies are doing telephone sourcing. For this reason, there just aren't a lot of people doing telephone sourcing. Maybe I'm wrong about that, and maybe I'll hear, blowback on that, but people don't do phone sourcing. They have a lot of ideas about it in their head, and I'm constantly fighting against those ideas. One of them we just talked about, the issue that Michael rose. If corporate believed that phone sourcers were calling up and telling these wild stories and putting the company at risk, they wouldn't want that.
Okay.
They wouldn't want that happening from their corporate properties.
Okay.
But I don't see why it can't be done. If it's done, as I described, there's no reason why it can't be done from corporate.
Right.
Telephone.
So, right. Michael, what are your views about this?
Okay. Well, some people in the past, they couldn't even, these corporate recruiters, they couldn't even make external calls directly to potential candidates from inside the company. So apparently now, though, there's a move to import people who have a lot of experience as external recruiters and bring them in. So I know that someone told me at Hewlett-Packard within the United States, they've got a recruiting department where they call people in other companies directly. Whether they're actually doing phone sourcing from inside the company is a good question. I interviewed on Wednesday a very good sourcer, an online sourcer, and he works from outside the company within his own home because of security issues, he said. It's a defense contractor in the United States, so they have him off-site. I've never heard of anybody doing phone sourcing from within the company. But my last comment is that, maybe in the future it's going to be possible. They're moving towards. Here's my final comment on that. There's sort of a movement towards hiring external people and building your own executive headhunting operations inside. Isn't that true, Maureen, to some extent?
I think it is. I think it is. And I think with all of the complications that big data is bringing nowadays, I think telephone sourcing is going to get looked at very seriously as a
Yes,
solution.
we hope the same, and the faster it happens over there, I'm sure in India as well, we will develop with this. So we'll move on to the next question. How do I use telephone to map specific departments or teams?
Again, as I put on the PowerPoint, this is a matter of speaking to sometimes maybe one person or maybe several persons within a company. But look at it this way, every time you speak to somebody, you have the opportunity to gather a little bit of information. Think about this like you're working a puzzle. You're putting a puzzle together, and the pieces go into the board. And sometimes they go in very quickly. Sometimes they go in in the beginning, they'll go in very slowly. But when I do it, I try to do a framework. And I think about it like a puzzle. I build a framework, and then I fill in the interior pieces.
Okay. I see your next slide says think of phone sourcing as a treasure hunting. So it's the same thing that you have. Look at it like a puzzle.
Right, right.
Okay. Phone sourcing requires an understanding of human psychology. Can you elaborate on that, Maureen?
Well, it's much more about listening than talking, and we touched on that before. When you listen to that gatekeeper, you not only listen to that gatekeeper, but you also listen to your own reactions. You listen to your own heart. You listen to what your body tells you, and you format your approach to her based on those reactions. And people are always surprised when I hear that because they think phone sourcers get on the phone and talk all the time. I do very little talking when I'm on the phone. I'm always asking questions that elicit information, and I'm always listening for information. And another thing I'm always doing is I'm always typing. When I'm on the phone, I have the phone in my ear, and yes, I do use a headset. I don't use headphones. I use a handset because it's a better delivery. Even here in the United States, and I use a landline because it's a better delivery. But I'm typing. Everything I hear, I'm typing. When she answers and her name's Maria, it goes into my research document. Because I might have to call her tomorrow. And when I call tomorrow and Judy answers, oh, I was expecting Maria. Is Maria out today? Boom. I've got a little bit of familiarity. Judy knows that I talked to Maria. Hey, Judy may think, hey, she's going to move me along a little quicker. So who knows how it works? It's all human psychology. Right.
All right, that's a great tip for all our viewers. So if you are phone sourcing, make sure that you do have an Word document or an Excel, and you're jotting down all the information that you do source. Make sure you take the name of the person you're speaking to, like Maureen just said.
Okay. Put dates into your research document so you know when you called, what time you called. I date and time my calls.
Right. All right. So how do I contact people who are not available at their desk and I'll end up reaching their voicemail all the time?
Go on to the next slide. You just keep calling. I don't know how many, I don't know the person who asked this question, I don't know how many times you're calling, but many recruiters or sourcers call once or twice and they get frustrated and they don't call anymore. Just keep calling. I call 4, 6, 8, 10, sometimes a dozen times. Here in the United States, if you call somebody up to 6 times, if you're calling 50 names on a slate of names, you're going to get through to 75 to 80% of them if you call through the slate half a dozen times.
All
It
right. So,
depends on it depends on who you're calling. If you're calling brain surgeons or rocket scientists,
mhm.
you have to call them 6, 8 times, and you may have to call them at the end of the day or very early in the morning. You have to think about what they're doing, what their schedules are like. Salespeople, you have to call early in the morning, or you might have to call, listen to their voicemail, get their cell phones off their voicemails, and call them somewhere else. You have to understand who you're calling, what they're doing, what their schedules are. You have to think like them.
Okay. All right, this is an interesting one. Most of the company directories are not updated with the contact numbers and only have email addresses. How should I go about sourcing his contact details?
I had trouble answering this because I wasn't sure what directories you're speaking about. That's not my experience here in the United States. If you are lucky enough to get your hands on a directory, they usually have phone numbers
Mm-hmm.
attached to them, and if they are missing anything, it's the email addresses. So, but I have an answer to this if you want to go on to the next slide.
Okay.
Just call the receptionist and ask her for the number. Many of them will give you the number, or she'll put you through to the person. Sometimes a receptionist might say, well, I can't, he'll have to give you that number, but I'm happy to put you through. And in that case, I'll say, well, could you do that, please? And oh, by the way, in case I get disconnected, I will ask, can you give me his extension number? Sometimes I'll ask the same question in a different way. Not often will she get tripped up on that, but once in a while she will. Remember, always push for a little more information. I'm always pushing for a little more information.
All right. That's a nice one. Okay. So, do you want to go through the slide, Maureen?
Did we skip one? I'm not sure.
Maureen, can I add something that you always talk about that I think you just missed?
Yes.
Sure, Michael.
As long as you've got an internal phone number, that's gravy for you, right? You don't care who you talk to in the
Oh,
company,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's right. I call it stabbing in. I just start, as long as as long as I know what the internal prefix is to that company, I'll just call anybody.
Okay.
If you know the internal dial, the internal prefix, the internal dial to the company, I just start calling in, and usually by the third or fourth person I talk to, that doesn't mean call, because a lot of times you get voicemails, but usually by the third or fourth person I talk to, and that might mean 8, 9, 10 dials, I have the information I need.
Okay. All right, we have another question here. While playing with the extension numbers, most of them connect you back to the gatekeeper. Is there a way to get around that? So we'll go to the next
Again,
slide.
I wasn't sure if this person was talking about calling during the day, but all phone systems are different. When I'm working a directory at night, I'll discover the key that will take me into the names directory. That'll bypass, or when I'm working it during the day, that'll bypass the receptionist. But calling after hours will usually always give you a names directory option. Here in the United States, I'm not sure about India, but here in the
Okay.
United States, if you call after hours, you will usually be given a names directory option. I hope this answered the question. If not, the person can email me and explain in more detail what they're looking for.
Sure.
But as far as, there's no one way to bypass a gatekeeper during daylight hours at all companies. Not that I know of.
Okay. We just have a live question on Twitter. This is from Tripti Nandkumar. What are the chief aspects of phone sourcing?
What are the chief aspects?
Yes, of phone sourcing.
Chief aspects of phone sourcing. I think what the person is asking is, what are the most important things about phone sourcing?
Right.
Okay, when you call, state your name, keep it brief. If the gatekeeper tells you her name when she answers, repeat it back to her. Don't repeat it too many times because it starts to sound phony. Don't say what company you're calling from. It's too much information. I simply say, hello, this is Maureen Sharib. Maria, can you transfer me to the accounting department? Or, hello, Maria, this is Maureen Sharib. I'm trying to reach the R&D department. Can you transfer me to the administrative assistant for that department? When I'm trying to reach something that's, pretty hairy and that they're security conscious on, I will go in at a low level. And when you ask for an administrative assistant, that sounds pretty non-threatening. So many times they'll put me in there at that level. Another thing I do many times is I will go to the executive assistant of a C-level over a department because she knows everything. And she can give me information sometimes that I can spend a lot of time trying to get, where she'll just give it to me because just to get rid of me. She's so busy. Just to get rid of me, she'll tell me whatever it is I'm looking to find. So I hope that answered that person's question. There's more, but basic things: say your name, say her name. If she told you her name, do not ask her name if she doesn't tell you, because that becomes confrontational. Remember to listen to her and base your approach on what your gut tells you about her.
All right, thanks, Maureen. Tripti, I hope you have the answer to your question. I think this is the last question we have. If I have a list of candidates from the same company, what would be the best way to source numbers for all of them? Call different locations or try to source all the information from one location?
This was a great question.
Right.
Go on to the next one. If it's a big company and they have a lot of locations and you have a lot of names, go to different locations, because the receptionist is going to get sick and tired of you at one location. But if it's only a few names, she'll give you maybe 10, 12 before she gets sick of you. But listen to her voice and be on guard for when she's starting to grow tired of you. Oh, and that's the other thing. Break it up. If you have a lot of names, break it up over a few days. Don't try to get it all at one time.
All right. Okay. I think we're done with today's session. I hope all the viewers who have sent us across the questions, you have received answers for your questions from Maureen. We do have a couple of questions coming up on Twitter. So, Maureen, I hope you would be answering those questions also. And Michael, are you still there?
Yep.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And
Yasmin, can we do a plug for Michael's the radio show?
Sure, we can. That would be great.
That's okay. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
No, guys, I'm sure all of us would like to see that. So why don't you people stay tuned to Sourcing Adda for more such sessions. And Maureen, thank you so much for joining us. And lastly, would you just like to give our viewers a message about how important telephone sourcing is? Though it hasn't made such a big impact in India yet, I'm sure for the time to come, we will have things changing. So would you like to tell our viewers to start using this as one important thing in the process of recruitment?
Telephone sourcing is critically important. It's not true that everybody is on LinkedIn or everybody is on the internet and you can find them tied to their professional status. It's just not true. Don't drink that Kool-Aid. I know you want to.
They don't know what the Kool-Aid crack means, so I don't know if they'll get that.
Don't you? You don't know what that? Well, if that's what they're telling you, it's just not true.
Right.
And the only people that really know that to be true are phone sourcers. So if you're uncovering a few of them, or rest assured, if you have 2 or 3, there's a boatload of others that are in that company. And the only way you're going to get them is to phone source them.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us today. Maureen, thanks so much for your time and sharing your thoughts and insights on telephone sourcing with us. Michael, thanks for joining us, though it was last minute. I'm glad you were able to join us.
Okay, I hope I didn't ruin everything.
Michael,
Yeah.
can you tell us something about your radio plug?
Oh, a Recruiting Animal show. You can go to recruitinganimal.com, and if you want to listen to some of my old shows, they're all there. I just interview recruiters. But Maureen used to have a show about a few years ago. She used to do a show immediately following mine, and it was all about phone sourcing. And I don't know, she tells all her secrets out in the public, so you can hear everything there if you dig through the archive.
Let me say something. Phone sourcing is simple. It's not easy. I don't want to give you the. I tell my secrets because it's just not easy. It's a lot of people try it and they just can't do it.
All right. So for all the viewers who are trying phone sourcing, thumbs up to you guys and continue what you're doing. If you do have questions about phone sourcing, we would be giving the link to this presentation. You can contact Maureen directly and have your queries resolved. So thank you all for joining us today. Thanks, Maureen. Thanks, Michael. And hope you guys have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.